overall. So, as I was stating a moment ago, as it is, some clients are already frustrated and panicking in reference to the situation, and communication is key. So, can somebody tell me, how will you use good communication to help you get the information that you actually need without further upsetting the client itself?
Besides asking questions and listening.
Yeah, make sure you're listening, right?
Hmm.
That one's a real good one, making sure you're nodding, eye contact and stuff. Because if you start looking around or you start finagling with your phone or doing anything else except for giving them your undivided attention, would obviously frustrate the client themselves. Using friendly language is obviously uh, another one. As we mentioned, a client-friendly language is basically we want to make sure as soon as we start using all of our jargon and all this other stuff, it's not going to make sense to them and they're not going to really be able to participate in this conversation with you.
Also, don't make the user to feel guilty for some kind of
Yeah, they'll
problem.
feel guilty for not understanding and then for creating the problem as it is. That is only going to impact more stress and more issues than what you want, definitely. Just imagine, and just pretend that you're trying to act overall to think like an investigator. Be your own little Watson out there. Ask open-ended questions to understand the actual issue. As it is, the client's gonna usually come to you angry or frustrated of the actual situation that they're in, and at the same time, they may even tell you to stop asking so many questions, just fix it. So how can you calmly explain to the user the importance of asking these questions, and what would you say?
Just give them like let them know that asking all these questions will help you better solve the problem, and that way, like they can go on with whatever they were working on.
Yeah.
I've worked customer service, so I like what's worked for me was apologize that it's a tedious process, that you do understand them. However, it's your best intention to help them, so it's something that you have to do to ask to be able to help them out fully.
Yeah. Apologies accepted is definitely something that you want to do. Is, believe it or not, as soon as you say I'm sorry, it's always your fault. The customer's always right. So just be ready, even when it's not your fault. If it was somebody in your team, you apologize. Remember, so don't take it personal. You're apologizing for the team. Don't feel like if you're the one that's apologizing, even if it was your fault or not, whatever it is, just apologize. You'll be surprised how fastly that person will just come down. Or even, saying that you understand the situation they're in and their frustration. Let them talk. As soon as you see that they're a little bit more calmed down, then continue. Obviously, there is some supervisors and or other people who don't understand this step, and hence why the A plus has come out. I know way back in the days when we were a little bit empathetic on the phones, some supervisors would get on the call centers and tell, "What in the world are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, the guy is hysterical as it is, doesn't want to talk to me, and how am I going to get the information? I need to calm them down. I need to make sure that person is in the right mindset so that we can be able to proceed. If not, we're just going to be at the end arguing and or making the matter worse." Thank you.
Hmm.
So we're going to basically be going to have a session later that's dedicated to good question asking practices. This is will be obviously, like I said, an essential skill for the success of you in an IT profession. So number two, two, two. How do we get there? As I said a moment ago, make sure you make those open-ended questions. As I said, please describe the problem. When did the problem start? What programs or software are you using? Thunderstorm. You also have recreate. That one is my favorite. Can you recreate it? Because sometimes they can't even describe it, but just go through the steps. Do it for me. Now let me see how you got there and how that ID10T error is coming along. Questions or concerns on the questions here? Make sure, please, follow along with the Word document. These things are going to get confusing real quick. So number two. Troubleshooting rule. Establish your theories. This is just like in the old science class where it was frustrating. So you got your hypotenuse and your hypothesis. That's hypotenuse is a triangle. Hypothesis. There we go. And basically, when you come in here, is overall where you're deciding which first priority is that you're going to be able to tackle first. Your client may obviously come with a long list, like we said, and give you a plethora of things to be able to take care of them. Whenever possible, set both time aside for yourself and the client to be able to ensure that you articulate the list of possible issues and the order in which you are going to be addressing them. Make sure you communicate. It's a two-way street. Just don't grab it, say, here, yeah, that's the problem, and let's go. Just let them know, keep them updated. Once again, jargon must be as simple as possible. You don't have to go into high level detail of bullet point, maybe of the things that are going on, as simple as possible. So, why might you need to establish your priorities when troubleshooting? Why might you need it?
Because there might be some, it's kind of like triaging things. There might be some things that are not as they're easier to fix, or they're not as big of a problem.
Exactly. Some things maybe I can't even address now. Maybe he wants an upgrade to Office and we got to get a license and this and that. But he also has problems with this, which I can fix now. So, yes, you are correct. We need to make sure that we identify all these issues and make sure we balance both the immediate concerns, what really needs to be fixed, compared to stuff that might be put off to a later time. Thank you. Why might you want to include your client in the process of establishing these priorities?
To see what type of things they use, or what's like important to them in a sense, I guess in their workplace to help the
You
company.
darn tootin'. How about if I'm assuming that this Word thing or Office thing I just told you is not an issue? He can get the upgrade later. But God only knows, maybe he had because they were cheapskate, his boss only gave him Office, God only knows what, and now they have the latest and greatest PowerPoint and he can't read it or he can't see it. His boss is I don't know, just coming up with any story. And he's got to do it. So now we're caught in a pickle, right? What we thought was an easy little thing that he can wait for later, if we had not asked and then made sure that we actually include them in setting these priorities, we are assuming. And the word assume spells out three words that I will not say about you and me. But overall, we need to make sure that we include them. As you can see, this is critical. Beware of the ID10Ts. Beware of user error. When working with computers, remember that there are only three issues, as I said. And can somebody tell me, beside this user error, somebody else that hasn't participated, please? You guys also get participation, little bunny ears, for this. Somebody tell me what are the other two? So you have your user error. What are
Software
your
and
Software,
hardware.
hardware.
Software.
Thank you. Definitely software failure and hardware failure. Who can tell me a story then about a time that you thought you had a computer that was broken and only realized that maybe it was some simple mistake? Come on, I know you guys have done it. Everybody's done it.
Yep.
story is
Honestly, I
I
thought my
oh
computer wasn't working once, and the power cable wasn't connected correctly.
yep.
kind of helps. Usually helps, especially on the towers. I mean, laptops you can get away with it for a little while, but yeah, I've seen that, and plenty of times you're assuming when you get there that nobody's touched anything, and I've seen it with printers and other things. The cable's loose, something's loose, and you're not checking, uh, and you feel silly when somebody else comes up and says, "What is this?" I should show you that video, but I'm not. But it's also IT crowd where the guy is testing his boss, the new lady's phone, and can't figure out why it's not working, this and that. He goes to and comes back or something like that. And when he comes and he texts, it wasn't plugged in, something like that. It was silly. So always beware of the error of the user error itself. We need to ensure that that is not the problem. That's our main concern right away. What kind of user error problems do you think you might encounter, except for it not being plugged into the wall? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Downloading the wrong thing, virus or something.
Yeah,
Changing a password and forgetting the password.
here we go. That's another one. Definitely.
Maybe when they moved the computer, some of the components might have shifted a little bit when they moved it.
Yeah. The one reason also we don't give people admin rights is have you ever had a user copy the Windows folder to somewhere else or move it per se? Yeah. That
I
drag and
deleted
drop.
the iRegistry one time.
It's not needed. Don't worry about it.
We had a rule at some point at work that if user can do something wrong, they will do something wrong, basically, to break the program or something.
Yeah. So exactly. So what might be one way that I can eliminate the possibility of user error? So what can I, if I suspect that it may do with that client? What's one of those questions that I showed earlier that I can pose to them where maybe they may be able to give me the answer of what I suspected? I almost said the answer. I usually do, but this time I didn't say the answer. So
Recreate the situation.
I'm sorry?
Recreate the situation.
Yes. Have them recreate the situation. Can you show me what were you doing? How is it that happened? However it is that you want to pose it to them. If you definitely think by what you first started asking them and doing this, and you think it's that, go ahead and ask them to go ahead and show you. That may get you there, and that usually eliminates the actual problems, like the vicious caps locks and having the incorrect password. I know what my password is. I know what it is. Oh, caps lock. Yeah, sorry. That's happened to me. I don't know if it's happened to you guys. Leave it on caps lock and then you try to put in your password
Yeah,
and obviously,
caps lock. I forget the password. Forget the security questions to the password. Just everything.
yeah, especially when you really need it, right? So number 4, troubleshooting rule number 4, ask about the data. Always back up. Apparently Oreo agrees. That's my cat. The data. Before you begin anything, you must understand that you got to get to hold of that data. Make sure whatever is critical to them, I understand you may be fixing a program, has nothing to do with the pictures, documents, or files that they have in there. Fully understand that. But do you understand that if you do lose people's information repetitively, you will lose your job? Therefore, hence, rule number 4, which before we touch anything, back up the data. And how do I confirm? Can somebody tell me how can I confirm I got the right data?
Back up the whole computer.
Oh, that would be a lot of time. Would I back up the whole computer?
Ask the client.
Ask the client, correct. Remember, Windows Files has a plethora of information in there. Office alone is gigs of information, of unnecessary information. Therefore, always back up data that is pertinent to them. Usually user profiles, docs, and stuff like that. But always ask, never assume.
So the type of question is like, is there anything that you need to back up before we get to work on this?
Yes. Now, did that answer your question? I answered your question, not as in that would be the question, but you just asked me the question. Did that
I,
give you a response that you expected?
yes,
No, did
I
it?
asked a yes or
Did it
no
tell you
question.
what for? Yeah, it gave you. You only asked me a yes or no question, unfortunately. Yeah. So you need to make sure that the question you pose to them is, where do you have your documents, files, or any vital information that you need? But even or not, some people love to create folders on their desktop. I know you do it. Don't act like if you don't. You have stuff that you shouldn't have in certain locations. The computer has a folder called documents, has a folder called pictures, but people refuse to use these, and we sometimes assume and back up the wrong folders. So we need to be careful. I've even seen people go and put in a separate drive, a D drive, all of their information, not on the users folder. Therefore, we need to make sure, just like we in our own computer know exactly where we have our critical information about ourselves, we need to make sure that we understand what is important to these clients and what is in stored in this computer that's critical to the client.
What do you do if and sorry, go ahead.
Hmm. No, no, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, what do you do if and when you have a client that says everything's important to me, like I need everything?
Then you do a full backup, fine
Okay.
and dandy. If they want everything, you give them everything. That's why we pose the question to them and not as a yes or no. It's not if they say the whole thing, fine and dandy. But as I said, back to technology, we are the laziest people, so we try to make things as simple as possible. In this case, the question was posed to them to see if I can shortcut and just get the information they really want. If they are afraid, as you said, a lot of people will say that they're afraid and they want you to back up everything, then go ahead and back up the whole computer. Some of the companies that are out there refuse to allow you to back up everything, and they'll tell you that the far as they'll go is backing up the user's data or user's folder and any other folder that they are able to point out. But that is, again, rules and regulations and procedures within any given organization.
But is that okay if you ask them for external hard drive to back up their data?
You ask the client for a tool.
Yeah, if they said I want to back up all my information, is that okay
Yes.
for them to back
Yeah,
up
it's
their hard drive?
okay. I mean, if you want to ask them because if they want to keep it, you're saying?
Yes.
Because see, that would be a completely different question. The backup that you're doing here is a backup for you. The question you're posing is a backup for them.
So now I have a question.
Hmm.
So there's never a concern where the customer feels like you're going to do something with their data
If they're
because you're backing
external,
up to the.
if they're external customers, you're saying you still need to back up the data and you need to destroy the information when you're done with it. That is correct. You're going to be dealing with PII and information of either external or internal customers. That's personal identifiable information and or personal information that they do not wish to share, including pictures in certain people's computers that you may find. Now, if it is an internal customer, you would have to report those type of pictures. You can't keep it to yourself. But as for external, you just usually rule of thumb, if it's an external customer, you back up and you don't look. You shouldn't be looking at the you just need to go and right click onto the folder, look at the properties of the original contents. It's going to tell you account and the size. So it's going to tell you how many files and what's the size of the folder. And then you do the same thing to the wherever you backed up. You right click, get the properties, get the count and the size. They match, continue. But you shouldn't be checking in there. If it's an external customer, you are correct. Technically, you shouldn't be looking at it. If the backup is to ensure that if anything happens, you're able to recover it. You can't rely on their backup. Therefore, in the question that someone just posted me, I would never ask a customer for a backup drive because that's asking for a tool to a mechanic. That's like, here, can you please change the oil? And then he's gonna ask you, yeah, let me get a socket wrench. Would you happen to have a filter? Do you have oil with you while you're here? Doesn't make sense, right? So I understand your question, but that would be a separate backup. That would be a backup for them to keep, and that's theirs, not in reference to backing up their data when you're troubleshooting. You're expected to back up to somewhere, either your server in the if it is internal and it is a 14500, or into your computer or your own external drive. You should be backing up the information because it's for you, for purposes of you restoring data. After that, you delete. You don't need it. Good questions. So how do you ensure that the client's data will remain safe? Can somebody tell me? How can I make sure that I have all of the client's data safe? Kind of alluded to that.
You check the file size and if they match.
Yeah, and confirm, right? Now
Yeah.
that I got it confirmed, backed up, I could always ask, hey, look, just want to make sure, as you can see here, this is, isn't it? Is there any other information that I may have missed or we have not identified? Simple as that. If they say go ahead, go. Now, one other reason we want to make sure is if we're touching hard drives, that's even getting more dangerous because now we're going to start most likely reformatting or deleting things. So that will get dangerous if we do not have a full backup. That's one easy way where we don't even have to ask. If we know that we're touching a hard drive, no matter what we're doing with that hard drive, if it is the hard drive itself, a full backup, we don't even have to bother on asking them. Anybody want to know why I want a full backup to be able to restore with ease?
Yes, I want to know why.
If I'm replacing the hard drive and or dealing with a hard drive that may be catastrophic failure, it's much easier to restore from a full backup than trying to recreate everything, install all the software, install all the licenses and or anything that they need. In this case, if I only do the files necessary that they use, if they had any other programs and or stuff that is installed, it will require me installing it if it goes catastrophic.
Quick question.
Mhm.
Does a full backup also save like settings within, like your applications and things like that? Or
A full backup will create, you could create an image, which is the exact image of the thing, but the full backup will create basically I don't know how to explain it better than you need only to install Windows itself. And if you restore from a backup, it'll bring it back from that time. What I love about Apple, they call it actually time machine, which makes it much easier for the brain to think. You could always think of you're jumping into a time machine and you're bringing it back to that exact moment of when you did the backup. Be whatever software that was in there or hardware installed, configured, everything is in there. All drivers, everything to that point on a full backup. Hope that makes sense.
So, sorry, I had a question. So where would you save the backup to? Like the cloud, like an external drive?
Usually they'll give you at work either a server to back up, your own computer to back up, and or an external drive to back up, depending on the business
And,
that you're in and or place. I
oh,
doubt that you're going to the cloud. Cloud costs too much money now. Fortune 500s, they do back up to the cloud, all laptops. There is software which automatically makes an image and continuously updates while you're changing things because of the fact of a lot of these companies are with the CEOs and all these people out there, they can't lose any information. And since it is encrypted hard drive, if anything happens to it, when it gets lost, the data technically is encrypted and nobody can get to it. But then once again, the CEO is upset because he doesn't have his data. So, and that's a constant backup, live backup that's going on in the background.
got you.
Questions, doubts before we proceed?
You said usual backups are to the cloud.
No, it's not usual to have backups to the cloud. Costs too much money. The only ones that would do something like that would be a Fortune 500 company where they can actually spend that type of money. Because if you're sharing it to the cloud, that's Google, Microsoft, all these people, gigs cost money. Now it could be a cloud internal, maybe but that would be a server farm more than a cloud, where you can save that data to a data center, and then the information is backed up there. Next step,
Thank you.
which is actually step 2, not to be confused with all these troubleshooting rules. As I said, it gets tricky. So now we got to step 2. Step 2, we need to examine the system itself and develop a theory. When it's time to begin overall the work on a computer, there are 4 important troubleshooting rules to follow. So, troubleshooting rule number 5 would be one of the first ones. Divide and conquer. When developing a theory, it is important to focus on one idea or theory at a time. We can call this, as we said, divide and conquer. And we mentioned this earlier. We can't go willy-nilly just jumping at and tackling 5 different issues or 5 different theories, because of the fact that when we finish, we won't be able to confirm which of the 5 theories did it. And since we should be, the final one that we stated earlier was to document everything. How can I document what fixed the issue if I did 5 different things and I couldn't identify which one really fixed it? We're going to learn that a computer screen is obviously stating when starting, it gives us white flashes or some information that help us. Sometimes they are able to diagnose these issues. Even with the blue screen itself, it gives us pertinent information. So overall, from the categories of issues, when looking at a computer overall, can somebody tell me which is usual error that I want to look at first? Thinking about all these category of problems that I'm looking at, which one? I have several of them that I'm about to look. I want to divide and conquer. So which of the category problems should I tackle first? We said there was 3.
User error.
That's right. We want to go and tackle that user error. Make sure we get him or her out of the way and ensure that the problem is really either software or hardware. Once you've narrowed the problem to one of these 3 categories, you must obviously do further strategic isolation of the issue itself. Develop a theory and ensure that when you have that theory, that you're able to test the theory itself. So who can tell me, think of one way that they can isolate a problem itself? One way inside a computer you can probably isolate a problem itself? Let's say maybe I'm having problems with a program itself, a software. How can I try to fix that maybe inside Windows?
you can find out like what works and see what doesn't work.
For the
Or
program itself. So I'm having a program that's giving me some type of problem or something. It's freezing.
Look at the logs.
I can look at logs, right? Is there is some other tools that are out there, and we're going to learn that in later chapters. And there is the actual start and stop of tasks. We can also check the actual task manager to see what's creating this payload on the system itself. I can also start and stop services within the actual operating system, which has stuff running in the background to help facilitate maybe the use of memory. So there is a plethora of things that I can do to try to isolate problems, but obviously without being able to identify first and then dividing and conquer all these different things that I'm going to do. If I try to tackle all these things that I said at one time, then I won't be able to identify the root cause of the problem. Number 6, troubleshooting rule number 6, still on step 2, still on step 2. Is make no assumptions. Do not assume. It only does something for you and me. And we get back to that little song. So making assumptions about a problem, a person, or even overall what the computer is doing is a huge mistake that IT professionals can make. We don't want to assume. We want to be methodical investigator, and we want to make sure that we know and build on our current knowledge. We do understand maybe that at times it could be that there is something that's happening repetitive, but we can't assume that it is the exact same issue until we put that as a theory, test the theory, and confirm that the theory that what we have stated fixed it. If we don't do these steps in that order that we're talking about, unfortunately, we're going to be getting towards the end and not towards the solution itself, just towards the end of the road. What kind of assumptions do you think an IT professional makes? Somebody tell me.
It's a software problem or it's a hardware problem.
Assuming automatically that it is a certain software problem, as I
Sorry.
stated a moment ago, right? Go ahead. Sorry.
Uh,
Sorry, you sound like a robot. I do apologize. If you could chat it to us,
I also say,
and
can you repeat the question one more time?
oh, okay. What kind of assumptions do you think an IT professional may make?
Okay, yeah, definitely user issue software.
Yeah, make sure to understand that there is no cookie cutter or template matching, and assuming that the problem has the same exact symptoms as any other problem that you've been dealing with during that day can be catastrophic to you. So we want to make sure we're open-minded in reference to what the issue is. Need to always confirm that what you believe is what it is in fact the problem, and that what you have applied has fixed the actual problem. So we have to understand that it is fully important to us to not make any assumptions, because a misdiagnosis of an issue can be a real huge problem. We fixed the wrong thing and it's costing the company time and money. It's going to further frustrate the actual client, because once again, we are doing something that we what they didn't ask, and we fix it fine and dandy, but then they're coming back and they got a very bad taste in their mouth in reference to service. The most effective way for IT professionals to think like investigators, they need to be careful and methodical. Need to plan their moves and research the problem before even taking another step. So, can somebody tell me, how can you avoid making assumptions? What can you do?
You
Come
could
in with an
ask.
open mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't know anything about it, so try to small words with them.
Ask the open-ended questions.
Okay.
Follow the rules.
Yeah. Well, we follow the rules of troubleshooting, right? So the rules tell us overall to ensure that everything we're doing is to be careful, methodical, and verifiable. Those are key things to understand, that we're careful, we're backing up the data, right? Understanding exactly what the problem is, be methodical and verifiable that it is. And just don't hope that we're right. Make sure we test and confirm that it has. As IT professionals, always do your own investigating after the client tells you about the problem. As I stated, they will tell you the solution. We don't need the solution. We need the problem. So make sure you dig and find what the problem is. Trust that the client is telling you the truth. Be how ridiculous it may sound sometimes on what they're telling you, but just take it to heart. Remember, this is at no point a personal issue. This is work related. Their knowledge and or intelligence is not the test. We want to understand what the issue is, so let them give their story. You also want to, after they've given you this ridiculous fairy tale story, which you most likely find hilarious, either which way, whatever it is, we want to then research and confirm that you understand and can reproduce the problem and observe what the client has described. Next, overall, number 7777. Rule number 7, not to be confused with any steps. So most problems are easy to fix. Always check the simple things first. Believe it or not, as we said, the least invasive. We will talk more about it shortly, but when solving a computer problem, you'll always think about what is it? What is this least invasive measure? And then slowly progress to the more invasive measures as needed. Because of the fact that the least invasive always take the least amount of time, hence back to my story, going back, we are lazy. We do the simple things, easy things first. I always do that because my brain remembers that those type of things and puts that into a context. And I'm not saying that we are lazy, but if you can think about it that we are lazy, this makes it simple to understand that that least invasive, if I am a lazy person, the least invasive thing is what I would do first. It's just ways to remember. I'm not saying that we are. So when discussing a computer, when discussing a computer, what is the difference between invasive and non-invasive?
Non-invasive would be small things that don't have any impact on the larger system. And invasive
So
would be things that have a large impact on the system, like opening up the machine and doing hardware stuff in the machine.
exactly. We're going to learn that in computers, which is very interesting, we always start with the software or the shell, the outside first, before we start going inwards. In networking, we actually go from the bottom layer first and then go up. So we start from the physical layer. But for when it comes to computers per se and troubleshooting itself, we must go from software. That is considered the least invasive. When we get down and go all the way down towards the physical, that's already considered, if I'm going inside, that's much more invasive. In networking is the other way around because if you think about it, if I can't communicate, the first thing I should check, am I plugged in? Right? That would be the least invasive. I don't have to touch anything. Is the little light flickering? So, any questions in reference to invasive and least invasive? So, as we see, when we're talking about computers, non-invasive refers to the repair actions that will not require opening up the computers as he just mentioned. Invasive measures involve using tools to open and or remove parts themselves on a computer. Why do you think that you want to try non-invasive measures first, besides being lazy? Somebody want to tell me?
Waste time.
Time. Time is always a factor. That is
Yeah.
correct. Time and effort is the first thing we always want to try to do. The one that takes the least time and effort. Unless, for some weird reason, we are 100% sure it is something else, but usually time and effort, that is the reason. If you know that you can develop and confirm your theory with a simple fix, you should try that first. Don't go and try to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't mean that you were assuming, you're just checking to make sure if it wasn't that simple thing in itself. It's the same kind of issue, and you believe that that is it, so you would always start with the most simplest fix and or theory to fix that issue. For example, if you think that the battery is a problem, you should run a battery diagnostics and confirm that that is the issue, right? Like on a car, you can go and put the little jumping thing and they tell you. So you find something user to simply check and help quickly examine the system itself. So what are some simple checks that you have tried before or know that you should try? I think some of you guys mentioned it earlier. One was the
Check if
Task
everything
manager.
is plugged in.
yeah, right? My
Then
USB
my
drive is not working. Well, let's make sure that is the USB drive plugged in, right? Does it have power?
The keyboard not working.
Yeah,
Is your
exactly.
monitor on?
That's it.
Exactly. That's another one, yeah. So, anybody want to
and
take a wild guess? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, restart might take care of many problems
Yeah,
also.
that too. That's a simple way too, right? If you're getting a lot of problems, a restart, refresh the memory, and make sure that hopefully they don't open up all those windows again and or the issue happens. So there are three kinds of problems for any computer. As I said, repetitive is the art of learning. Anybody want to tell me what those are the three problems we've been mentioning so far?
Hardware, software, and the user error.
User area, yeah. At this point in troubleshooting problem, you should have eliminated obviously the possibility of a user error because of the fact that we are here at this point. We should obviously, hopefully, get past that. You need to follow this process to form a best theory and to test. One, have them reproduce the problem and observe yourself what the client has described. Two, decide if the problem is hardware or software. If you ruled out first that it was not a user error. And three, make the best theory as to the source of the problem overall. You've tried simple things and you have a theory about what the problem might be, but you want to ensure that you've explored every possibility, or maybe you've tried the simple things and run a few tests, but have no idea what the problem is. So now it's time to be a researcher. We need to make sure that after we've done these steps here and ensured that we've ensured and looked at the best theories and run out of things, we need to research, Google it, ask whoever it is that may be able to be in this company that's going to help you out. Ask a quick question there. Who can help me? What is the first step in troubleshooting?
See.
Everyone agree? See?
Yeah.
Number two, what is the best way to identify a problem?
Ask a series of open-ended questions.
B.
Yeah, speak.
All
Yes.
right. Number 3, which is not one of the most common types of errors?
Administrative.
E.
Yeah. D.
When diagnosing a problem, when diagnosing a problem, you should first reformat the hard drive in order to start from clean slate.
False.
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 I say reformat and don't back up. Reproducing the issue is part of the process of forming a working theory. Is that true or false?
True.
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 Submit. So yes, definitely identifying the problem is the first step in the process. The best way to identify open-ended question, probing questions, right? And our problems, 3 errors, which is a user, hardware, and software, and obviously administrative is just plain words. When diagnosing the problem itself, we should obviously not reformat. We should hopefully be backing up information. And lastly, to reproducing issues is part of the best theories, practices, and obviously decide if the problem is hardware, software, and lastly, make the best of your theories of to be able to identify the problems and make sure that we become a researcher. Why do we want to be a researcher? And how can we be a researcher? What can we do?
You ask questions, stay
Back your
open-minded,
site.
don't assume.
But would I be asking these questions to the user? I can't fix the problem. I don't know how to fix. I identify the problem, but now I can't I can't seem to come up with a theory that will resolve your problem,
Internet search.
right?
Ask
Google.
other colleagues.
Teammates.
Yeah, there you go. Asking our colleagues, read documentations, maybe online, study training materials, maybe that might be available. A lot of these Fortune 500 have training materials for the different new Windows and or softwares that are coming out. User guides, search the web as you guys mentioned, manufacturer websites, even diagnostic software. Sometimes you have even make a phone call to your second or third level support to see who can get you the correct answers. Definitely, all those will help you hopefully get to where you need to go. So next is interviews and theories. We still have 4 steps to learn, but we are going to take a short break here and practice what you've learned. Take the handout that you have, going to put you into partners of 2, and basically you're going to review with each other overall what you have filled out. Make sure that you both come up with the actual information in the right places. Overall, we're going to then come back after then the 2 o'clock session, sorry, the break, and we will review and do maybe some role playing if we have enough time on it. So here we are. To ensure that you always ask open-ended questions and ensure that you set your priorities in reference to what the issues are to be fixed first. In case of the DVD was more important, we saw that the other thing that was slow really wasn't a major issue. And to top it all off, since we didn't, at least in my group, we tried to dig too quickly toward the more invasive procedure instead of the least invasive. But eventually we did get to the issue where the DVD was so scratched badly that just a simple testing of another one would have resolved the issue and not having to do any warranty repair and or go back in time in case if we thought it was the patch that actually created the issue. Hope that was fun and exciting or new. Next step Not to be confused with all these other rules and steps. Well, now we're on step 3. Yes, I said 3. I know I said like 50 things already, but this is only step 3. When it's time to test your theory, you'll want to follow several troubleshooting rules. So remember, there's rules associated with these steps. So, rule number 9. Oops, sorry, did I click twice? I did. Number 9 itself is write things down. Think about the notes that you might write while troubleshooting and repairing a computer. What could your notes include? Can somebody tell me? What could your notes include?
You're not presenting, just so you know, in the group thing.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
We can't. Can you go back one slide?
Yeah, to check what the step was.
Write things down like where you think the possible problems could go, and then kind of like branch from there, maybe, or the possible solution to the problem. You're on
The
mute.
previous slide was test your theory, and we're here at rule number 9 to write things down. So we're on step 3, and the rule associated with this guy is to write things down. I'm sorry, go ahead. Somebody was actually answering a question and or providing a feedback towards what I just
Me.
asked. Go ahead.
I guess you would put what you think the solution is, and then what the outcome of that solution could be, and eventually what the outcome still was, or the results of it after doing that.
That's things you may write down on your notes for well, what else can I have? What's one of the first things I'm writing down when
What
I'm
the
digging?
problem is, what
The
the
issues, right?
computer
The
is.
brief description of the issue, right?
When the
What else
problem
can?
started?
Mm-hmm.
Customer's name.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you got that. Yeah. Might have some maybe diagrams, maybe some other information of manuals, where to find manuals. There's a plethora of things that you're gonna have in there, obviously. Depending each and every one, as you guys mentioned, can be intertwined with each other, or someone may not have something and the other ones may. But one key thing is a brief description of the issue itself, maybe a list of the issues, or as you guys said, your theories that you have in there. But there is plenty to write down. Why will it be important to write things down?
To keep track of what you've done and what you haven't done just yet.
Exactly. You're going to be able to remember and eliminate things that you've already tried. If not, you're going to be continuously going through there, and then you're going to sound like your friend SpongeBob 600 days later. Either which way, think about it, and sometimes your colleagues themselves may be working on a similar situation, or might have already worked with the situation. As I stated, your colleagues and or people that have different level of escalation, not your supervisor. Remember, your first line, there's always a second level and third level support depending on the area itself. So you could always ask. And most important thing is not to be afraid to ask. It's not what you know, is who you know that can fix it. We always can learn. That's not a problem. But we need to know who we can go to when the time comes. So make sure you fill up that imaginary little Rolodex that I used to do. Believe it or not, I used to have a little Rolodex on my desk of everybody's contact information of who I needed to contact, depending on, because in UPS it was huge. And eventually, obviously, I went to a digital format of all that stuff. But either which way, you can feel me out. In the 80s, there wasn't a fancy database and or system that I can do, okay? Think about it overall. What do you
Sorry,
think? Go
I
ahead.
have a question. So we put into our notes all steps, like, and after that, in the final report, we just put the steps of the solution of the problem, not the ones that didn't lead to good
We will be
solution
getting
for.
into that, yeah, that towards the end as for documenting everything. But remember, when we're documenting everything, these are in these ticketing systems and or maybe via email. But usually in all these main companies, they have a ticketing system or case system, something that keeps track of what this problem is. And that's what they mean by documenting. You're going to be documenting every try. You're going to be documenting with them when you're going to go see them and what you're going to go do. All of this must be documented in the notes within the case or tickets, depending how they want to call it. And that's what they mean. Eventually, you will have a resolution, and then there you will put the final note of what the actual resolution entails. But meanwhile, everything must be documented in there, be that it fixes or does not fix the issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not a problem. So just remember to always think about your colleagues that may be working with you. You may be out, and then the actual client calls. So then these notes are critical because you already tested and did things, and then they are available to help them to continue with this ticket. And if we did not write down things, back to square one. When Generation asked employers about the most important skills for IT professionals, we learned that the ability to take notes and properly document troubleshooting steps was one of the primary skills that sets the highest achievers apart. Everyone. Document, document, document. And you could ask Lázaro, and I'm pretty sure Justin knows me very well. You must document. You can say whatever you want, not a problem. Send an email right after that, a Teams message, and I am. Put it in a written format. Otherwise, it just went into the air and into nowhere's land. So, any questions about documenting?
No.
Oh, I had a question.
Go ahead,
Like
please.
how extensive, like, do you have to do like every detail? Is it like in like certain jobs you have to like make your own kind of like thing, or is it like a template maybe, like a, or is
You just hit it right on the nail. Yes, it's at times if you can, let's say a voicemail reset, password reset, or things that are repetitive in nature, these Fortune 500s do have a quick fix little button, which then brings up the template, says all the verbiage that you need to say, and then you just change where all the X's are to the user's ID or to the user's voicemail box as an example. At the same time, we should obviously document, and we will be doing those type of exercises. We won't be going into great details every single steps. We keep it again in the language that the client and the customer can understand. We're not going to put jargon and big words that they don't understand. We try to keep it as simple as possible so that when they read these notes, they're able to understand it.
Turo, that's a very good question. In past places of employment, if there wasn't any documentation, you would be tasked to create a protocol. I've created several protocols for things that I did to make sure that the next person that needed to get done, it was on a shared drive, they had access to it if it was a problem that would repeat itself. Or if it was something that I had to do again or came up again. We always check the spreadsheet in the shared drive for that protocol before we went to that department to work on whatever issue it was.
okay, I see.
Thank you. So yeah, you might be creating mops yourself. Anybody want to know what a mop is? I just did that on purpose. See how frustrating that is? That's what happens. What just happened to you is happening to the user. Mop is a master operating plan, and or you might actually create some how-to manuals within your company. So just be prepared depending on the size of the company and be prepared to maybe do it for yourself if the company is too small when you're first starting, because obviously just practicing and learning these skills, if we do not practicing and hone down this, we're going to basically lose it. We're going to be obviously going in later sessions and focusing on note taking and documenting exactly. For now, we're just going to be tasked with the understanding how critical it is for your success to write things down, all right? So testing and confirming a theory can be one of the most technically challenging aspects of your job as an IT professional overall. Remembering troubleshooting rules 10 and 11 will help you with it within this. Do not assume the worst. This is troubleshooting rule is pretty simple and to understand. Sometimes if we jump to the worst, as I said earlier, we went and completely went and bought a brand new DVD drive, and I'm pretty sure that customer would have been upset when we got that DVD drive in place and that DVD isn't unable to play. So we try to keep that always at the last gauge, right? Assuming the worst will keep us from thinking clearly, even working effectively, because we have already came up with the solution. Instead of assuming the worst, what mindset could you use to maintain your positivity when working on a challenging issue? Kevin.
Pardon, what was the question? I was taking the note.
Instead of assuming the worst, what kind of mindset could you use to maintain your positivity when working on a challenging issue overall? It keeps on giving you problems. Everything you try doesn't want to work. Just keep on failing
Adaptability.
after one. Yeah, that's one of them. What's another one? Combo with that.
Persistence.
That's darn too. And so adaptability and persistence is definitely what we're looking for, right? We want to be able to adapt to the situation. If what we're working is not there, come up with other resources. Be persistent all the time. Don't give up, because if we give up, then obviously the customer is not going to get their problem fixed. As I stated, it's not what you know, it's who you know and how to get to that information you're looking for. Google is your friend, and or there is a plethora of documentation that the Fortune 500s keep to allow you to be able to go to these knowledge-based databases and facilitate the process. Next, troubleshooting rule number 11, reboot. Oh, that's my favorite. I think that's like the first episode of IT Crowd where the guy is he's from the first time, he's just asking, have you rebooted your computer? So obviously that one also again is self-explanatory. When solving a difficult problem, take a break, walk away from the problem and come back and begin again. Sometimes you can't think straight when you're frustrated, so you might just have to go and take a break. Diego, let me get
To be some of the more challenging ones.
Yeah, especially if
definitely.
that person that you're talking to doesn't have any idea how to do that stuff at all. Like they're completely illiterate to computers. They're having to teach them and go through it. That'd be really tough, especially over the phone.
Exactly.
I feel like you're throwing a jab at me, Ayana, but it's all right. It's all right.
No, that was good. It was yours that made me feel like, dang, I really need some more preparation. Because if somebody came to me with Kevin's issue, I was so happy Josh got it, and I didn't get it. 'Cause I'd have been stuck.
Yeah, that
You
was a
guys-
hard one.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, sorry about that. I had to go get brand new headset there. Battery died. Alrighty then. So back to life and back to reality. So where were we? We were at reboot and start over overall. When, as I stated, when solving a difficult problem, take a break, walk away from the problem itself, come back. As you saw, I didn't get frustrated. I did my best to try to facilitate the issue, and don't obviously give up. How could rebooting the computer or yourself by walking away demonstrate your mindset of persistence?
Sometimes you need that breather to just compose yourself and just get in the right mental state before you enter and just get more persistent, get back on task.
Definitely, yeah. Unfortunately, we need to remember that some of these things can get frustrating when we perform steps 2 and 3 several times, when we're diagnosing and doing these testing of our theories. it could get frustrating and cumbersome for ourselves. So we need to understand getting frustrated won't get us anywhere and it won't fix the problem itself. We might feel that we're wasting our time and negativity overall, but if we do not relax in ourselves, get in the right mindset, we're not going to be able to help the actual client, and we won't even feel like we're even working in a good job because all we're doing is just frustrating ourselves. Always remember, this is never personal. This is a computer. Use logic, don't get frustrated with it. It's not picky. Although I always believe mine is, as you can see, it's picky with me every single day. She just likes to mess with me. Next. So how will mindset overall of persistence help you when you have this repetitive develop and then test theory? How can it help you? How can it help you?
I think it's
From what I
frustrating when you believe that you have the solution to something and then that doesn't work out. Neither does plan B or plan C. And so you just have to persist to continue on and getting to the point where you resolve the problem.
exactly. We need to remember that obviously that eventually we're going to be able to get to the solution itself, be that it's not directly ourselves, if it's with another colleague, but we have to use the skills that we're learning here so that we can then develop whatever we're bump in the road, right? We said if we could just get out of that comfort zone, we have our learning zone, and then we have the so if we can get in there, that's really when we're starting to learn. And I know it's a little bit tedious and or scary, but those type of aha moments can help us obviously for the next time we're going to be experiencing that type of repair, and we'll be able to do it with ease. Next area is to plan your solution and then fix the problem. So you have been persistent and you have tested your theories and you have discovered that this one finally is the right one. It's time to fix the computer. Why is it important to create a plan before you do anything though? Before you fix it?
You could get something out of order or mix yourself up, and then it could make the problem worse.
Hmm. Especially since we stated that we want to be the least first. That's what we're honing down back. So our plan should include from our least to our greater. We're not just going to have a plan which just has one thing and then come back and look bad.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we lost audio for a minute.
No.
All right. So you shouldn't only have one single plan. You should have all your plans, all your ducks in a row, which at this point, since you are planning more or less to the right spot, as we stated, from the least invasive.
We lost you again.
Still gone.
Still gone. We can't hear you.
The AO has on like a $300 mic, and it is acting up. I don't know.
Right? Isn't that like a gaming
You can
headset?
call
Or no,
Yeah, he
customer
got like
support.
it's like a high end microphone, probably
That's
like
crazy.
top of the line. But that's how that works, man.
What's a Bluetooth?
He needs technical support.
He has cats too, though, so they probably chew on the wires and all that.
Yeah. Hello. Testing 1, 2.
Got you.
Hear you now, sir.
All right. Woohoo. So plan your solution and fix the problem. Ironic, isn't it? Eventually, this will hopefully work and get us through this here. So, as we said, always use the least invasive solution first. That is your troubleshooting rule number 12. As we said a little while ago, we talked about the idea of trying simple solutions first. That's basically part of the stuff we're going to discuss further. The idea when applying it and creating a solution to fix a problem that you have diagnosed and confirmed. What does it mean to use least invasive? Anyone want to tell me? from what we learned so far.
Deal
Least
with
invasive.
software first and then hardware.
Definitely,
Least
that's what we're
invasive.
going. hmm Whatever solution, depending on if it is a computer or a network, yes, we start from the correct order. In this case, if it is a computer, we would start somewhere within the software. Before the software, there, who should I eliminate or what?
User.
The user.
User error.
Mm. So, remembering obviously the importance of least invasive measures, we need to find out then exactly where we're going to start from, where we're going, and from here, and make sure that obviously we are methodical in our process overall. Because if we don't know where we're starting, how can we know where we're going to be going? And make sure our plan is there to obviously fix the issue as soon as possible and come up with the best solution with the least invasive first. Next is step 5, verify functionality and take preventive action. Need to ensure obviously that now that we have fixed the issue, if it is possible, we are going to reboot the system, verify everything that we did fix, right? Start it up again, make sure everything's working. Have the client check everything and make sure that everything's okay. And ask yourself if this could have been prevented by the actual user, be whatever it is that it could have been prevented, we educate them. Why? Because of the lessons learned that are being applied here must be given to the user. This will obviously alleviate the calls and or the issue. For instance, in the example we had earlier where I continuously kept on and locked myself out with the password, and if I noticed that the user actually did that because maybe I came up to their desk or something, I would take note of that, reset their password or unlock their ID, and ensure that they note the next time, obviously, to take off the caps lock. I think that's why Windows put that. I don't know if you guys notice. When you log on, it tells you, hey, you, I'm going to say something, but user ID 10 error, please take off the caps. Questions, concerns. So now, lastly, document your finding. Once you have fixed the computer, you've verified everything's been issue is resolved, it is time to document everything. As we discussed and mentioned, note taking and why it is important overall. Why would it be also important for me to document now everything that has happened and what I did to fix this somewhat from what we have stated earlier?
For future reference.
Definitely. Lessons learned always teach for future lessons. It helps not only you, but your colleagues, whoever's in your teams. They could always look at the history of the tickets and look at what was done, what didn't work, and what did work.
Is it a mop? A mop, right?
Master operating plan is actually in reference to, let's say, how to reset a password. They might have an encyclopedia of all it is about you and your job. So they'll have that digital master operating plan of everything that you need to know to do your job. Usually that happens in operations and or other scenarios like that. Questions, concerns? You're right. So now we have documented everything. Let's go here. Remember to not always assume the worst. So don't overthink your solution. Adam obviously is panicking that his computer stops working. He calls it tech support for help. So you're tech support and you must help out him. What could you do? So first of all, you want to make sure you identify the problem. The computer is obviously not working, but why? Establish a theory of probable cause. If the computer can't turn on, maybe the computer has no power, as we said. We could then test the theory. Adam, can you please check the cable in the computer in the back and try and connect it to maybe another outlet? Adam said it's okay. Give me a moment. I'll do that. Establish how to resolve the issue. Adam said it's connected in a switch socket, different outlet. He tried turning the computer. Notice the computer is now powered up. Verify the problem has been resolved. We can't just assume what we did, actually fix it. Ensure tech support of Adam if everything's okay. Replies yes, because now he has confirmed again. And document your results. Tech support ensures that the client Adam is happy, reports the switch, resolved the issue, and it should be done by checking the outlet. So we can see we obviously also educate them a little bit at the end, ensuring for them to be able to check everything. So we see here we have the uh-oh moment, identify the problem, establish theory, test the theory, evaluate results. If you see the vicious cycle happens there between the actual 2 and the 3. So when you're evaluating your results, if it hasn't been fixed, you're going back to establishing another theory. Hence the persistence and or patience to be able to go through this vicious loop. Establish a plan of actions, implement the plan, verify full system functionality, and document your finding. And hooray, your issue has been fixed. Woohoo! As an IT professional, you are working here as we could skip that. So, running out of time. Sorry about that, people. Describing overall by this moment should be able to describe how effectively troubleshooting using the 6 steps that we mentioned of troubleshooting methodology. Use your troubleshooting steps and methodology to diagnose your motherboard issues. Any questions, concerns? Hello. Have I been talking to myself for the last hour?
No, we can hear you. No questions, no concerns.
All right,
Nice
go ahead.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So during the scenario A, the solution was to reboot the computer. And one of the first steps is to back up data. To try a solution like turning on and off the computer, do you still need to back up the data before you do something that simple?
But why would you be backing up? Did you confirm and establish your theory already by that time? Because if you're fixing it, you would be backing it up, right? But have you gotten that far when you?
They had already done the
Yeah,
restart.
so
but Go ahead, Nicole.
yeah, we had already established that he hadn't restarted his computer in forever. And I suggested that, I asked when the last time he restarted his computer. He says that he never does. And so at that point, I'd be testing that theory or hypothesis, right?
Correct. I understand what you're saying, but do you agree that the first step is to interview the client and back up the data? So one of the things I could ask them before they restart is, have you back up your information? You stated you haven't restarted your computer 5 months as it is, and if you haven't started, I could only venture you haven't backed up. So before I restart a computer, even though it is a simple fix, we want to ask them just in case be that it is maybe even worse that maybe when I restart it, I create an even huge issue and they're not able to get to the data.
That's a
That or
great question,
saving unsafe
Nicole.
files.
Hats off to Robert. He's a new learner. That was one of the things he said, and he wasn't prompted. He said, "Hey, make sure you save everything before you restart." And I had to give him his credit for that because that wasn't required, but it's totally a very good suggestion because, like Diego just said, if you haven't restarted it, you more surely not saving. So you're right on with that, Nicole.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns on that one? All right. This pretty much ends this session. Thank you all.